Did you know that nearly 40% of retirees admit they made at least one decision that ended up costing them thousands of dollars during retirement? And here's the surprising part. Most of those mistakes were completely avoidable. Imagine working hard your whole life, saving carefully, and then realizing one overlooked choice could jeopardize the comfortable future you dreamed of. That's a reality many retirees face, but it doesn't have to be your story. In this video, we're going beyond generic advice. You'll hear the hard-earned lessons directly from retirees themselves. These are the kinds of insights you won't find in a textbook, but in real lives lived, mistakes made, and wisdom gained. And here's the exciting part. Each lesson comes with a clear, actionable takeaway you can start applying today. So stay with me until the very end, because the final tip is the one most retirees say would have completely changed the way they approached retirement. Meet Elbridge. At 72 years old, he carries the calm presence of someone who has spent his life surrounded by stories. For decades, Elbridge worked as a school librarian, guiding generation after generation of children into the magical world of books. He wasn't the loudest or the flashiest teacher, but he was the one kids would remember, the one who knew exactly which story could change their perspective, comfort them on a rough day, or ignite their curiosity. His life's work was about helping others discover knowledge. But when it came to his own retirement planning, Elbridge would later admit that he wasn't always the wise guide he had been for so many others. Like many people, Elbridge assumed that time was on his side. He thought saving a little here and there would eventually add up, that Social Security would stretch further than it did, and that his modest pension would always be enough. For years, those assumptions felt safe, almost comforting. But as he grew older and reality set in, he discovered that retirement requires a very different kind of story, one filled with strategy, preparation, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths head-on. Elbridge is not a financial expert, but that's what makes his story powerful. He represents the countless retirees who made some excellent choices, like living modestly and avoiding unnecessary luxuries, while also stumbling into costly mistakes that could have been prevented with just a little more planning. He remembers the moment he realized he had underestimated healthcare expenses, and how that forced him to dip into savings faster than he expected. He recalls the regret of not diversifying his income sources earlier, but also the pride of discovering new ways to generate money in retirement, like tutoring part-time and sharing his love of reading in unexpected ways. His journey is a mix of wisdom and cautionary tales, reminders that retirement is not just about numbers in an account, but about decisions, habits, and priorities. And while Elbridge has made peace with his past, he often says he shares his lessons so others don't have to learn them the hard way. Through his story, we'll uncover 8 powerful lessons every retiree wants you to know, lessons that can save you from painful regrets, while guiding you toward a retirement filled with peace of mind, financial security, and purpose. Tip number 1. Start earlier than you think. Elbridge often talks about a former colleague named Marianne. She was a bright, dedicated teacher who spent her life pouring her energy into her students, always putting others first. Like many people, she believed she could catch up later when life felt more stable. She thought retirement savings could wait until after the mortgage was smaller, the kids finished school, or the unexpected expenses finally slowed down. But the truth is, those perfect conditions never came. By the time Marianne seriously started contributing to her retirement, she was already in her late 50s, and she found herself facing an uphill climb. Elbridge shares her story because it highlights one of the most powerful forces in retirement planning: compound growth. The earlier you start, the more your money can work for you. Think of it like planting a tree. If you plant a tiny seed today, with time and care, it grows into a sturdy oak that provides shade and comfort for years. But if you wait until much later, you may end up with only a small sapling, still helpful, but far less impactful. The same principle applies to your savings. A modest contribution in your 20s or 30s has the potential to outgrow even larger contributions made decades later, simply because of the power of time. Elbridge admits that while he did start saving, he underestimated just how valuable those early contributions were. He often says, "If I had doubled down in my 30s, I could have bought myself so much more freedom in my 60s. That's why he encourages anyone listening, even if you think it's too late, to start now. Because the second best time to plant that financial seed is today. And here's the part where you can reflect. Be honest. Did you start earlier, or are you catching up now? Share your story in the comments, because your journey might inspire someone else who feels like they've fallen behind. Remember, retirement isn't about perfection, it's about taking the smartest steps you can from wherever you are right now. Tip number 2, don't rely on just one income source. Elbridge often shakes his head when he remembers how many of his coworkers believed their pensions alone would carry them through retirement. Back then, pensions felt unshakable, guaranteed, dependable, and safe. But as the years went by, those payouts didn't stretch as far as expected. Costs of living crept up, healthcare demands rose, and the value of a dollar seemed to shrink every year. For some retirees, those fixed incomes began to feel more like shackles than safety nets. And when you throw in stock market swings that can wipe out a chunk of savings overnight, depending on only one stream of money suddenly feels like walking a tightrope with no safety net beneath you. Elbridge decided to do something about it. After retiring, he leaned into his lifelong love of teaching and began offering private tutoring sessions. It wasn't glamorous, and it certainly didn't replace a full salary, but the extra income gave him something even more valuable, peace of mind. He didn't have to worry as much if an unexpected bill arrived or if the market took a downturn. That small side hustle became a cushion, a quiet reassurance that he had options. And beyond the money, it gave him purpose. He still got to share knowledge, connect with young people, and feel useful in a stage of life when many fear losing relevance. This lesson isn't about working forever or turning retirement into a second career. It's about creating flexibility. Some retirees find joy in renting out a room on occasion, starting a small hobby business, or investing in dividend-paying assets. Others simply look for creative ways to stretch their income while keeping their independence. The important part is this: don't let your entire future rest on one shaky pillar. Diversify your income streams, even modestly, so that no single financial shock can topple your plans. And just when Elbridge thought he had figured it out, he made another mistake, one that ended up costing him nearly $15,000. What happened? That's coming up next. Tip number 3. Underestimating healthcare costs can be one of the most painful mistakes in retirement. Elbridge found this out the hard way. In his late 60s, just a few years into retirement, he needed an unexpected surgery. It wasn't something he could delay, it was urgent. While Medicare covered a portion of the expenses, he was shocked to discover how much was left on his shoulders. The hospital stay, specialist fees, and follow-up therapy added up faster than he ever imagined. Before he knew it, he had drained thousands of dollars from his personal savings, money he had carefully set aside for travel and leisure. Instead of enjoying his freedom, he spent months stressed about bills piling up on the kitchen counter. This experience opened his eyes to a truth many retirees overlook. Medicare is not a blanket that covers everything. There are gaps, sometimes wide ones, that can leave retirees scrambling. Prescription drugs, long-term care, dental work, vision care, and supplemental treatments often fall outside standard coverage. Without additional insurance or a plan to cover those out-of-pocket costs, one medical emergency can snowball into financial chaos. The emotional toll was just as heavy as the financial one. Elbridge remembers lying awake at night, not because of pain from the surgery, but from the anxiety of wondering if his savings would last. Retirement is supposed to be a season of peace, but medical surprises can rob you of that peace if you're not prepared. That's why his biggest advice is simple but urgent. Plan ahead for the gaps. Look into supplemental insurance plans, consider health savings accounts if you still have time, and be realistic about the fact that healthcare costs almost always rise with age. Hope for good health, but plan for bumps along the way. Now, let's hear from you. Have you or someone you know ever faced surprise medical bills that caught you off guard? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else prepare before it's too late. Tip number 4, downsizing isn't defeat, it's freedom. For years, Elbridge clung to his family home. It was the house where he raised his children, where holiday dinners filled the rooms with laughter, and where every corner seemed to hold a memory. Letting go felt impossible. He told himself, "This is my legacy. This house is part of who I am." But over time, the reality became harder to ignore. The roof needed repair, the yard demanded endless hours of maintenance, and the heating bills in winter seemed to eat up more of his fixed income each year. What was once a symbol of stability had quietly turned into a burden. The turning point came when he visited a close friend who had recently moved into a smaller home. His friend wasn't weighed down by chores or constant repairs. He was traveling, spending weekends with family, and even picking up new hobbies. That's when Elbridge realized that clinging to a big house wasn't giving him more security, it was quietly draining his energy, time, and money. When he finally made the decision to downsize, it felt bittersweet at first. But soon he experienced something he hadn't felt in years: freedom. The smaller space meant fewer bills, less upkeep, and more flexibility. With the equity he freed up, Elbridge was able to take his first trip abroad, something he had always dreamed of but never thought he could afford. He discovered that a smaller home didn't mean a smaller life. In fact, it opened the door to a bigger, richer experience. This is the heart of the lesson. Downsizing doesn't mean giving up. It means letting go of what no longer serves you so you can make room for what does. Many retirees resist this step because of nostalgia or pride, but often, what feels like losing is actually gaining freedom. A simpler space can lead to a fuller life. As Elbridge often says with a smile, sometimes less really is more. And in retirement, that less can be the key to living with joy and peace of mind. Tip number 5. Avoid high-interest debt. It's the hidden thief of retirement. Elbridge remembers a season in his life when he leaned on credit cards more than he should have. At first, it seemed harmless, just small charges here and there. A dinner out, a new appliance, a few unexpected car repairs. He always told himself, "I'll pay it off next month." But like so many others, life got in the way, and before he knew it, the balances grew larger while the interest piled on. By the time he reached retirement, those credit cards followed him like heavy chains. The problem with high-interest debt is that it doesn't just sit quietly in the background, it grows. Even modest balances can balloon when the interest rate hovers at 15% or 20%. For retirees living on a fixed income, that growth can be devastating. Instead of stretching savings on travel, hobbies, or family experiences, every extra dollar ends up feeding the debt monster. Elbridge once confided that carrying debt into retirement made him feel like he was running in place. No matter how hard he tried, the finish line kept moving farther away. His turning point came when he sat down with a financial counselor who showed him the math. The counselor explained that every dollar he paid toward high-interest debt was like gaining an instant return of 15–20%, a return no safe investment could match. That perspective hit him hard. From then on, he made it a mission to pay off his credit cards before focusing on anything else. The relief he felt when he finally cleared those balances was greater than any vacation could have provided. The takeaway here is simple. If you're still carrying high-interest debt, make it your top priority to eliminate it before retirement. Don't wait, don't postpone, and don't underestimate how quickly it can eat through decades of savings. As Elbridge puts it, this mistake can drain decades of savings faster than you think. So ask yourself, are you carrying balances that are holding your retirement hostage? If so, today is the perfect time to begin loosening those chains. Your future self will thank you. Tip number 6. Stay socially and mentally active. Because retirement isn't just about money, it's about meaning. When Elbridge first stepped away from his career as a librarian, he imagined endless quiet mornings with coffee and books. For a while, it felt wonderful. But as months went by, something unexpected crept in: loneliness. The routine that once gave his days structure was gone. The casual conversations with colleagues, the laughter of students, even the small interactions at work. Suddenly, they were missing. Without realizing it, he began to feel disconnected, like he was fading into the background of his own life. Elbridge isn't alone in that experience. Many retirees discover that once the initial joy of freedom wears off, the absence of purpose can leave a heavy void. And studies confirm it. Isolation in retirement can increase the risk of depression, cognitive decline, and even physical health issues. That's why staying socially and mentally engaged is just as vital as managing your finances. Elbridge turned things around when he joined a local history club. At first, he was hesitant. He thought, "I've read enough history to last a lifetime." But what he found wasn't just facts and dates, it was connection. He discovered a group of like-minded people who valued conversation, storytelling, and learning. Those weekly meetings gave him something to look forward to, sparked curiosity, and rekindled his sense of belonging. He often says that club didn't just improve his happiness, it gave him back a reason to get up each morning with excitement. The lesson here is simple but profound. True wealth in retirement isn't measured only in dollars, but in relationships, passions, and purpose. Whether it's joining a club, volunteering, mentoring younger generations, or simply staying active in your community, these choices create the kind of fulfillment money alone can't buy. So let me ask you, what keeps you feeling alive and connected? Share it in the comments, because your answer might inspire someone else to rediscover meaning in their own retirement journey. Tip number 7, plan for inflation, because the dollar you hold today won't stretch as far tomorrow. Elbridge remembers walking into his neighborhood grocery store and feeling a pang of disbelief. The same bag of groceries he used to buy a decade earlier had nearly doubled in price. It wasn't luxury items that shocked him, it was the basics: bread, milk, eggs, fresh fruit. Those everyday essentials that once barely made a dent in his wallet now consumed a bigger and bigger slice of his monthly budget. That's when it truly sank in. Inflation isn't an abstract economic term, it's a very real force that slowly but surely erodes purchasing power. For retirees living on fixed incomes, inflation can be especially brutal. What feels comfortable at the beginning of retirement may feel tight 10 or 15 years later. Elbridge often says, "It's not the first few years you have to worry about, it's the later years when prices keep climbing, but your income doesn't." That's why he stresses the importance of factoring inflation into every retirement plan. So, how can you prepare? First, avoid putting all your money into assets that don't grow over time. While savings accounts and CDs feel safe, they often fail to keep pace with rising costs. Diversifying, whether through investments that historically outpace inflation, such as stocks, real estate, or dividend-paying funds, can provide that extra buffer. Second, consider budgeting with inflation in mind. Don't assume your expenses will remain flat for 20 years. Build in wiggle room for those gradual increases, because they add up faster than you think. Elbridge admits he once underestimated how powerful inflation can be. That mistake forced him to adjust his lifestyle more than he anticipated. But with careful planning, future retirees can avoid that same squeeze. And here's the best part. While inflation is something you can plan for, the next lesson is one that surprises nearly everyone. In fact, Elbridge calls it the most eye-opening truth about retirement. Stay tuned, because this final tip might completely change how you think about your future. Tip number 8. Time is your greatest currency. Ask any retiree what they truly value most, and you'll notice a pattern. It's not the size of their bank account, the car in their driveway, or the number of zeros in their portfolio. It's the moments they have left to enjoy. Elbridge realized this after years of worrying over numbers. For a long time, he would sit at his desk, calculator in hand, reworking budgets, second-guessing investments, and stressing over whether he had enough. But one afternoon, while playing a simple board game with his grandchildren, he felt something shift. Their laughter, their curiosity, the sparkle in their eyes, he suddenly understood that those minutes were priceless. No dollar amount could buy back that time if it slipped away. That realization reshaped his perspective. Money, he discovered, is a tool, not the destination. Of course, it's essential to plan, save, and invest wisely, But the end goal isn't to die with the largest account balance. The real prize is the freedom to spend your time how you choose, traveling to see loved ones, finally pursuing that hobby you've always dreamed about, or simply savoring quiet mornings without a rush. Elbridge often says, "I thought I was preparing for retirement by focusing on my finances, but what I really needed was a plan for my life." That statement captures the heart of this lesson. Don't overlook the non-financial side of retirement. Ask yourself, what will give your days meaning? Who will you share them with? What experiences do you want to create before the clock runs out? Because time, once spent, never returns. This is the wisdom retirees wish they had embraced sooner. Money can always be earned, saved, or even regained, but time is the one currency you can never replenish. Use it intentionally, protect it fiercely, and spend it generously on the people and experiences that matter most. So as you think about your future, remember this: don't just plan your finances, plan your life. That's the true secret to a fulfilling retirement. Elbridge's journey shows us something deeply important. Retirement isn't about getting everything perfect. It's about learning, adjusting, and preparing in ways that make life richer and more secure. He walked through his fair share of mistakes, like underestimating healthcare costs, carrying debt longer than he should have, and clinging to a house that had become more burden than blessing. Yet he also discovered powerful lessons that reshaped his later years. He found freedom in downsizing, peace of mind in creating extra income streams, joy in staying socially connected, and ultimately, the wisdom that time, not money, is the most valuable currency of all. What makes Elbridge's story so relatable is that it isn't about being flawless or following a perfect financial formula. It's about real life, the challenges, the regrets, and the opportunities to turn things around no matter where you start. His transformation proves that retirement planning is less about chasing numbers and more about building a future where security and meaning can exist side by side. And here's the takeaway for you. Every decision you make today is a small gift to your future self. Whether it's paying down debt, setting aside a little more in savings, or deciding to nurture your relationships, each choice adds up to create the retirement story you'll live tomorrow. The earlier you start, the more freedom you'll have to enjoy the moments that truly matter. So, if these insights resonated with you, take a second to support this community. Hit the like button. It really helps more people find these lessons. Subscribe to Retirement Lifestyle Hub so you never miss future tips that can protect and strengthen your retirement journey. And most importantly, share this video with a friend or family member who's planning their future. Because retirement is not something we prepare for alone. The best retirement is the one we prepare for together. Now, imagine your future self looking back with gratitude, not regret. That begins with the steps you take today.